The House of the Dead is one of Sega's most recognizable franchises, and one of my personal favorites from them. With challenging light gun gameplay, an awesome zombie theme, hilariously bad voice acting, at least in the case of 1 and 2, and a western horror film influence, this game, along with Resident Evil, really kickstarted the zombie game craze. The franchise has been around since 1996, and has had 4 sequels and 4 spin-offs. It has also been referenced in Sega crossover games, sometimes without the actual name, but you aren't fooling me. Sadly, with Sega only willing to dedicate so much to certain properties, franchises like this were left behind on the console PC front in recent times. Fortunately, they have licensed some of these properties out to mixed results. The main one here is Megapixel Studio, who already developed the excellent Panzer Dragoon remake. So Sega has retained their services once again for the House of the Dead remake. Developed by Megapixel Studio and published by Forever Entertainment, this game was released on April 7, 2022 for the Nintendo Switch, April 27, 2022 for the PC, PS4, and Xbox One, and September 23, 2022 for the Xbox Series X/X. Why a remake? Well, the original source code for the game has been lost amongst many other Saturn-era games. It sucks, but it is what it is. At least we can recreate the essence in Unity, right? But for the most part, yeah. The story remains unchanged from the original game. Dr. Roy Kurian, a biochemist and geneticist, becomes hell-bent on finding the nature of life and death, and he starts conducting experiments that go haywire. His mansion, Kurian Mansion, in Europe, suffers an outbreak as a result. December 18, 1998, AMS agent Thomas Rogan gets a distress call from his fiancée, Sophie, who's working as a researcher for the DDR Corporation who's funding Kurian's descent into madness. She calls for help, and Thomas, along with his partner, known only by his pseudonym G, fly over to Europe to save Sophie and investigate the madness and put a stop to it.
You must stop Kurian, or else something terrible will happen.
The House of the Dead is primarily a light gun game. You'll play as either Thomas Rogan or G in the 1-player and 2-player spots respectively. Both are equipped with pistols that have 6 bullets and need to be reloaded when out of ammo by pressing the reload button or shooting off screen for those playing it with a gun, as you should. The object of the game is simple. You'll move along the path of the mansion clearing out zombies until you reach the end of the stage, where you'll fight a boss battle. The bosses have a weak point that you keep firing away at until they go down. Repeat a few more times and you have the game in a nutshell. Be careful not to get hit or you'll lose a life. At specific points in the level, you might have to save a scientist. Keep saving enough of them and they'll help you out. Save all of them in a level and you'll get a bonus at the end. Depending on if you save the scientist or not, alternate paths may become available to you. Don't outright shoot them though, or you'll lose a life. You'll also find crates and barrels to shoot to find 1-ups, which you are going to need, and coins to shoot that will give you bonus points. The remake pretty much follows the original here beat for beat, gameplay and all, but there's quite a few differences that make it stand out. For starters, in addition to the standard pistol, you can unlock a whole host of weapons: assault rifles, shotguns, grenade launchers, pitters, and crossbows for those of you wanting to channel your inner Daryl Dixon. These add a bit of replayability since using different weapons can lead to different strategies, and feels like later series entry weapons come back here. They can also help to find different scoring patterns. Speaking of which, in addition to the original's classic scoring system, you have a modern version of the scoring system. With modern, there are no point deductions for taking damage and killing scientists, but you will still lose lives in that regard, so you probably shouldn't still. You'll also get more points for back-to-back kills in a short amount of time, and your combo meter fills, but it caps at 5 kills. The modern scoring is easier for newer players and people not good at light gun games, especially this one since the series is tough. Speaking of which, you have 4 difficulty options: easy, medium, hard, and arcade. The higher the difficulty you choose, the more points you can earn. The last new addition is a new mode called Horde Mode, in which you have to shoot way more zombies than you do in the original game. It doesn't really add much overall to the game, and just feels like a way to see how many zombies can fit on a screen in Unity Engine. For the most part, the game looks graphically fine. Textures look sharp, environments look good, Shadows are well represented, and everything looks as it should for running in Unity. The monster designs have also been modernly touched up nicely and look faithful to the original. Though tonally, it doesn't seem to blend well with the original games, since the original game's assets couldn't be ripped and updated due to technicality and legal issues. Everything has been remade from the ground up. Part of the reason for this styles clash is that Sega advised Forever Entertainment to take inspiration from the latest game in the franchise, House of the Dead's Scarlet Dawn. Hell, some of the bosses were reused in Scarlet Dawn and almost look like they came from that game. The problem is that tonally, Scarlet Dawn and the original House of the Dead feel very different from one another. Scarlet Dawn takes itself a bit more seriously, while the original is campier. Die-hard fans will probably be disappointed with this look, but it's serviceable. Perhaps an option to have an original graphics filter like the Halo 1 and 2 Anniversary Editions would have helped, but at last, that option is not here. Performance depends on the version you get. The PlayStation, Xbox, and PC versions all look pretty identical and run pretty smoothly for the most part. The only real version that has downgrades is the Switch version. Docked, it only runs at 720p 60 frames per second. Handheld mode, it runs at 30 frames per second. Not good for a light gun game. It also looks worse, with worse looking textures and environments and what have you. The other thing that will change depending on which version you get is the controls. Out of all the options, the PC version controls the best with a mouse, since you can essentially be quick. If you want to use a light gun here, fan patches will allow you to use a Sinden or gun for IR, depending on your preference. The PS4 version can use the PS Move, which is always a plus. You can't use the VR aim controller though. You can only use a standard controller on the Xbox ports, which is about as fun as it sounds. And the Switch version tries to use the gyro control to emulate the light gun, but it's not as smooth as a mouse, Sinden, gun for IR, or even a PS Move. The best versions to get from all this is probably either the PlayStation versions or the PC version. The soundtrack itself also works. The music itself has been redone, as Sega did not license out the original soundtrack done by Tatsuya Kawauchi. Sebastian Poncelet is at the helm for this new soundtrack. This new soundtrack mixes the motifs of the game's original themes, with a dash of chiptune music in there for good measure and guitar work. Honestly, I'm not too big on this game's soundtrack. The original just really helped enhance the mood, and it was even seen in other Sega-themed crossover games like Sega Superstars Tennis. You can mod it on PC to put back in the original soundtrack. Sound effects fill their roles well and are probably the best sounding thing in the game. The voice acting is alright. It's not as bad as the original, which even there had a cheesy B-movie vibe, but it's not particularly great. The badness of the original was memorable, but here, it only just does the job, and you move on once you beat the game. With the achievements, model viewer, and unlockable weapons amongst other things, there is a decent amount of replayability. The House of the Dead remake works as a functional way to play the game. It looks fine, but tonally clashes with the original. The sound works, but pales in comparison to the original. The gameplay is easy to pick up on, and there's a decent amount of replayability, but each version does have its drawbacks. I would avoid the Switch version due to worse performance and controls. The Xbox version works if you really want to play a light gun game with a controller, but the PS4 and PC versions are the best. Mostly PC because of mod support. If you're a new player looking to get into the franchise, this isn't a terrible first way to play it, but you're probably going to want to emulate the original once you finish the remake. Die-hard fans will probably be peeved with some of the visual changes. Hopefully Megapixel improves upon this game's shortcomings with the House of the Dead 2 remake they're working on, and I'll probably review that a little after it comes out. As for this game, I give the House of the Dead remake a 3 out of 5. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, click the big red button below to subscribe. Check out the other links in the description for more cool stuff, and check out the playlist on screen for more content. See you in the next video.